while ensuring that community members feel more comfortable participating in the services that are offered by the Family Assistance Program, and that they can be navigated throughout the course of the services that they access by trusted individuals from the communities who have lived experience. So we really believe this will result in a higher participation in the program, easier access to the services, and we look forward to hearing from you in terms of any thoughts that you may have in terms of how we might refine this model. But we really see it as a hybrid, offering all the support and resources that we have in this office, combined with and in partnership with community and working with trusted community members with lived experience. So right now, that is the vision for the model. And before we open it up to questions, your questions, comments, and thoughts, I'd like to turn it over to Wendy Blanco. She is the Director of Counseling Services and Trauma Recovery at Peace Over Violence. Thank you for joining us this evening. Wendy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Andrea. Thanks, Patty and Humphreys, for inviting me back. As you mentioned, my name is Patty. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I am the Director of Clinical Services at Peace Over Violence, which means I oversee all of our counseling programs. And if you're not aware of Peace Over Violence, we provide wraparound services for survivors of domestic violence and sexual abuse. And it's a one-stop shop, so we have a lot of different programs that we pride ourselves in. Well, I guess I would say this, but we pride ourselves in our clinical work because we have what we call our Triumph model, which is like a menu of services that are accessible to our communities. So, things like EMDR or community resiliency model, we practice a lot of different modalities because we understand that not one size fits all, and that we all are unique and we all need different things in terms of our healing. So I'm here today to talk a little bit about, do a really quick introduction around trauma, and then also just to remind you that in this time there's going to be, public comment, so there may be things that people say that can be heavy. So I just want to make sure that you all are being mindful of taking care of yourselves and your bodies. Take a break if you need to, walk around. I'll give you some tips on how to self-regulate. But just to start, we'll talk a little bit about trauma and how it manifests in our body. So we can go ahead and start on the next slide. So some of the objectives really quickly is just to talk about the intersections between trauma and health, and then what vicarious trauma means, and then how we take care of ourselves. The next slide. So what is trauma? So when we talk about trauma, we take our lessons from Judith Herman's trauma recovery, the trauma recovery model, which basically talks about how stabilization is really important when someone has experienced trauma. When we talk about trauma, we're talking about, anything that is experienced as trauma, which it could be community violence, it could be domestic violence, sexual abuse. It can be, you want to call it big T. It can be that, or it can even be like a dental appointment that has gone wrong and has traumatized a person or a child. Okay? So it can be anything, but what we're talking about more specifically is having intense fear, feelings of helplessness, loss of control, and threat of destruction. So all of these things are what we experience as trauma. And if we go to the next slide, when we know that trauma has happened, has occurred to us, these are some of the examples of what trauma can be. It can be very personal, private, or public. It can be a natural disaster, it can be war, all these things. It can also be something that we don't often talk about is sort of the oversaturation of media. So, maybe 20 years ago, we didn't have access to so much information, but now we're in a very interesting time where you can be watching a reality show and in the next moment you can follow the person that's in the reality show and know all about their lives, the same as, anything that happens on the news. Like before, it's like, here's a clip of what happened. You can easily go on YouTube and probably find the full unedited video, right? So we have a lot of access and with access comes the consequence of the re-traumatization that can happen and continues to happen. So the next slide. So there's a lot of things we're talking about when we talk about trauma, but also a study that came as a result of seeing the intersections of trauma and health is the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, ACEs, which talks about how the more ACEs, the more childhood experiences that we have had, is sort of a marker for the more high risk we are to health issues. So we think about how trauma starts to create sort of toxins, for lack of a better term, it starts creating toxins in our body that quickly begin to affect the way that our bowel movements function. It creates issues with high cholesterol, high blood pressure, all of these things that ultimately end up affecting our lifespan, right? So this is the connection between trauma or our childhood experiences or our adult traumatic experiences turning into a high risk for our health outcomes. Next slide. And what is the prevalence of trauma? So we know that about 70% of adults in the US have had some type of event of trauma. Certainly now having more access to information and seeing things happen like active shooters, seeing people dying, in real time is traumatic. So we know that people are experiencing trauma a lot more, which is why we introduced a trauma-informed care model, which we just assume everyone has experienced some level of trauma and educate, come to these meetings and come to other meetings, wherever they will have us, to talk about why having a trauma-informed approach is much better than looking at people and saying, what's wrong with you, right? We're thinking about what happened to you instead. Next slide. And then so these are the common reactions of trauma. We have, we become distrustful of other people. We have their sexual dysfunctions, angry outbursts, paranoia, and the list goes on and on about how many traumatic reactions that we have. So sometimes people that are reacting sort of explosively or, reacting in ways that we don't always understand, oftentimes it's rooted in trauma and it's rooted in much deeper core beliefs about themselves and about how their worth in their own communities, right? So it's really important just to understand that all these feelings sometimes, come from a deeper place, and what is really required is healing. Next slide. And then what is vicarious trauma? Vicarious trauma is also just as important to talk about, but it's an occupational challenge for people who are organizers, people who are social workers, people who are frontline workers, people who are, family members who've witnessed, a murder in their communities. That is vicarious trauma. It's secondary trauma of a person who has seen victimization, or even who has chronically heard of stories of victimization, right? So if you're an organizer and you constantly hear people in your community telling you these narratives of violence, you can also start mirroring some of those trauma symptoms because our body is taking in those reactions. Next slide. And then, so how do you incorporate mindfulness on a daily basis? One of the things that is super important, and we'll do a little activity at the end, is activating your five senses. No matter where you are, you can do it in this moment. You can activate all of your five senses. In fact, our memories live in our five senses. So, even traumatic memories. This is why we have flashbacks, because whenever our body is full of adrenaline and we have an experience, our body stores those memories. And whenever we have that feeling come up again, that feeling of adrenaline, we might remember those moments where we had intense fear, again, hopelessness, things that we talked about of what trauma is in the first time you've ever experienced it, right? So activating your five senses is actually a self-preservation, to do it in a moment where you're feeling, just even in this moment where you're present, you can look around you, notice what you're seeing, notice what you're touching, notice what you're smelling, notice the temperature on your skin, right? Activating all of those senses. Also preparing, so making sure that you have snacks around you, right? Things that we want to make sure that we're taking care of our emotional health, but also our physical health, making sure that we are we have snacks and we have things around us and having water, so we know that our basic needs are met. Sharing with others, having accountability friends, making sure that there's accountable people around you that can check in on you, not just like how are you doing in a superficial way, but how are you really doing? How are you getting through the day? Being playful. One of the things that is robbed from us when we've experienced trauma at a young age is the ability to be playful and to lean into that silliness, because we've never had an opportunity. We've had to grow very responsible at an early age. And so sometimes just finding a time to be playful with yourself is really important. Setting reminders on your phone or putting post-its on places that you frequent so that you remember to breathe. You remember to just notice what's around you. Finding your strengths, knowing that, we all have routines and our body already is designed to take care of itself. So there's probably already a lot of things that you're doing at home to take care of yourself. It could be as simple as waking up before everyone in the house, just to sit by yourself and have your coffee and tea. It can be your daily, facial cleanser that you take some time to wash your face. It can be a bath that you may imagine that you're washing away the worry. It can be as simple as those things. Next slide. And then these are helpful tips that come directly from the Trauma Resource Institute. So the CRIM model is the Help Now strategies. These things are easy things that you can do at any time: drinking a glass of water, looking around the room, naming 6 colors, counting backwards from 10. The important thing is that you're aware of how your body is responding, to be aware of how your body is responding to what is going on. And when you feel like you're dysregulated, when you feel like you're not safe, or you feel like your anxiety is rising, you want to take a moment and notice these little things, using these strategies, even to know that you have the power and control to take care of yourself in those moments. It can be as simply as pushing your hands against the wall so that you can identify where your body is holding tension, and then releasing your hands from the wall, and just breathing through that, noticing the change in the tension in your body. And then lastly, the thing that I always remember in the grand scheme of these things, if you can go to the next slide, the last slide, is that you can't pour from an empty cup. So it's always important for us to take care of ourselves first. So applying that mask before we help other people, right? And asking ourselves on a daily basis, what am I doing to take care of myself? Even if it's, something that somebody might consider as a small thing, right? Like writing, it could be writing in your journal. It can be giving yourself a pep talk in the mirror. Whatever it is that you do to keep you motivated is worthy of honoring. So that's what I want to leave you with. And we'll do an activity at the end too, when we're seeking out our resources. But I want you to remember that, and remember that in this process, it's important to take care of yourself. Notice what's happening in your body. If you're being triggered, you take a step away, from the computer or wherever you're watching this, and then come back. Make sure that you're breathing and taking care of yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy, for those very important self-care reminders and for that really good information about trauma as we enter this conversation this evening about the Family Assistance Program. We appreciate it. Thank you. And we will see you again at the end. So now we want to open this up to live comments from all of you who are here tonight. To make a comment, you must be logged into WebEx, and please click on the hand icon in the participant window. So here's, thank you very much for bringing this slide up. So please click on the hand icon in the participant window. When the hand is shaded in gray, you are in the queue to be unmuted when it is your turn. If you have any technical questions, please send a chat to the host. Please be respectful of the 4-minute time limit. So we hope to hear from as many people as possible, And in order to do that in the time that we have, we would really ask you to keep it to 4 minutes. And we do want to hear from you, but we would appreciate if you keep that in mind. Please ensure that you are addressing one of the questions that are currently on the screen. So I think the screen, the next slide, are the questions. I'm just going to briefly read through these. But these are the areas where we really want to hear from you about the Family Assistance Program and this next phase of the Family Assistance Program and what this model should look like. So we'd love to hear if you've received services ever from the Family Assistance Program. And if you have, what was the most helpful thing? And do you have any program improvement suggestions? So if you have received services, we would love to hear from you. Also, we want to know what would help build trust between your community and the county. If we as a county entity, the Department of Public Health, the Office of Violence Prevention, if we're providing this service and are working together with community, what would help to build trust between community and county? What barriers prevent community members from accessing services? So from your perspective, what do you think prevents people from accessing the Family Assistance Program services? What resources would be most helpful to the community to heal after a fatal use of force incident? 5, what is the best method to communicate about services? So we really want people to be aware of the services of the Family Assistance Program. What is the best way in which we can communicate in an ongoing way about the services that are available? What experience or expertise should a community organization who is the managing or assisting in response have? What are those, what skill sets, what qualifications should that agency or the people who work in that agency have? And last, what resources would help families following an in-custody related death? So that we are really responding both to deaths that occur in the community, but also deaths that occur in custody. And what resources, we would like to know what resources would help families following in-custody deaths, as well as the in-community deaths. So those are the questions. We would ask you to focus on any one of these key areas. And with that, I will say we are open for questions. And so questions, comments, thoughts, and I think I might need help from Civilian Oversight Commission in terms of who might be the first speaker at.
Yes, thank you, Andrea. We will get started on that just after a Spanish message. Please go ahead, Ingrid.
Buenas tardes. Si necesita que sus comentarios sean traducidos, simplemente diga la palabra español antes de comenzar a compartir sus comentarios y alguien le dará instrucciones para proceder. Gracias.
Thank you. And we'll get started with our first caller. I do want to say that if your hand is raised, I will call on you. I'm also going through the list of registration. So when individuals signed up, they were asked if they'd like to make a comment. I'll also be trying to get to those individuals as well. The first comment will come from Wendy Cabill. You are unmuted. Please go ahead with your comment, Wendy.
Good evening, and thank you for having this wonderful presentation, and I'm glad that I was able to chime in when I saw it, and I also shared it. Now, I just want to explain, I don't have experience in this particular area. However, I am here to support. I'm the co-chair for the Black and African Heritage Underserved Cultural Community Subcommittee within the Department of Mental Health, and I've been in this position for a year, and I can give some insight on how to help build relations with the community, because that's something that I'm still struggling with in my position. And mainly because of transparency and making the environment welcoming and making sure that the community is aware that there's a table for them to come to. So I'll just, stop for now, but that's just my intro. And I really appreciated Wendy Blanco's trauma-informed care presentation, and I would love to have you come and share with us in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. And our next speaker will be Christina Vasquez. Christina, you're unmuted. Please go ahead.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Christina Vasquez, and my husband, Marco Vasquez Jr., was killed by the Pico Sheriff Station on October 6th of 2019, in front of his parents, his brother, myself, our two oldest daughters, his aunt, and my son-in-law. And I would like to focus on everything, but I know we only have so much time. Excuse me, I always get nervous when I have to speak. So the first question, have you received services? The ironic thing is, I believe the first time we ever spoke on the oversight committee meeting, I believe was in July of this year. And shortly after that, I received a call from someone from DMH, and they were stating that they wanted to reimburse me for funeral costs. And I was confused because, mind you, we buried him in 2019 and I had never filled anything out. Long story short, they reimbursed us, but I know it took a long time, and I was just really confused because I had never applied for anything, and that was one of the first times any type of assistance was being offered to us. Also, it's not like we were very proactive in looking for resources because we had no knowledge of anything like that. I do also remember, I want to say a month after he passed away, I can't remember the program's name. I believe it was Spirit, but they are kind of like a medium between DCFS. Like they come in before DCFS comes in, and I guess the social worker who had arrived on scene with the first responding team the night my husband was killed put in a referral. I don't know if she felt that my children were in danger, but because nothing was explained to me, I know when I got the call and she said, oh, we're part of a program of DCFS, I got really defensive because I was already defensive with anyone working in the county or affiliated to anything, because I'm thinking, you already took my husband, you're not going to take my children. So I remember I was very angry when I answered the call, and I'm like, what do you want? My children are fine. And, you know, she was very professional. She handled it well. She's like, no, ma'am, I'm not phoning. No one's trying to take your children away. We're here to offer assistance. So they offered me a check, which helped cover my in-laws' mortgage, or part of that mortgage that month. And then they also helped my daughter get my granddaughter a bed and some clothing. But then that was it for that program. So those really are the only two things. But I think what would help is, as soon as you guys catch wind of an impacted family, is to contact them immediately and let them know what resources are available. Because I know, speaking for us, we were in so much shock and trauma. We weren't thinking clearly for a really long time. I mean, and I think it's evident too. I still get very nervous having to speak about it, having to say anything about it in front of any commission board, in front of any county employee. It's all very triggering still, and it's over 2 years. So that's basically all I have in short.
Thank you, Christina. And next we will hear from Susie Evans. Susie, you're unmuted. Please go ahead. Susie Evans, I will chat with you on the back end. I know that you've mentioned you may have issues with your microphone, so I'll chat with you on the back end, and we will move to Jessica Martinez. Go ahead, Jessica.
Yes. Thank you for the opportunity to bring my question. And my question is regarding if I get in service. Actually, I've been asking for mental health for a long time because I'm going through a lot of trauma right now, and then I didn't receive anything. They deny me to get any mental health for my family, and I have a situation with the authorities. They harassing me, and I have right now I'm so traumatized moving because I'm scared my family can be one of the victims for the officers and the community are harassing me too. But my concern is I asking to DMH to different places for mental health, and I never receive any mental. They deny it to me. They want to hear like if I hear voices, I'm not gonna say something that I'm not here. But like I have a like really bad experience in the past when my psychiatrist tried to give me like a medication, and that medication have a side effects on me. And because I denied to take that medication, they removed my kids from my place. So on this moment, I'm just really need like mental health service because my family is going through a lot of things. So I'll have a question like how like I can get to those services without like having like denying from the workers, because I've been asking, like I say, not only one time. I've been in different places to asking for mental health.
Jessica, I'm sorry, I know we're going to go on to the next speaker, but I just want to say thank you for speaking, and I don't know if there's a way the staff can get your information and we can follow up with you to help connect you to services. Wendy, I see you're on too, so please, if there's something that you can offer. But I am really sorry to hear that, Jessica, and we do want to help you get connected to services. So Wendy, I'll turn it over to you in case you have direct connection, but we can also figure out if you want to leave your information, how to get you connected to county services as well.
Sure, I just let me know how that I give you the information, or have to send it by email, or how that I have to send it, because like at this point, like I don't have any support. I've been asking, my case is already sent to the Justice Department, to the UN, because the authorities like deny me. Like even I call 911 because I have emergency, and they deny me to send the police officer to my house. I'm right now I'm scared, like something irreparable can happen to one of my family members. And then like one of my daughters, she's in the U.S. Navy, and I don't know how like those places can treat a mom from one of the active duty soldier, like denying like one of the benefits is like mental health.
Jessica, I'm so sorry that you're going through that. I know that it is a hard road sometimes to get connected into services, but I will say that there are a lot of trauma recovery centers also that have been, they're sort of like wraparound services for adults and children, but also victims of crime. I think someone earlier talked about the victims of crime compensation, and so that also allows you, even if you're not the identified victim of a crime, even just being a derivative, being a parent of, or even a grandparent, will allow you up to 40 sessions that victims of crime can cover, and it's all restitution funds. So it's not some people, I've had some clients will say, well, I don't want to take that help because it will look like it's like a government assistance, and it's all restitution funds. So these are, this is money that is out there for survivors of crime, their families. So yeah, I'd be happy to connect with you, or COC can connect us, and I can help you with the application process.
Thank you, because I really need the help, and I appreciate like the opportunity like to like get those benefits. And I do like I am a victim of domestic violence too, so I really need those services.
Jessica, thank you so much for sharing your comments with us. We will take the information that you shared with us when you logged in, and we will reach out to you.
Okay.
Unless you want to send the chat directly to the host, and only the host with your information, we can do that as well. But thank you so much for sharing your comments.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And we will move to the next speaker, Laura Iniguez. You're unmuted. Please go ahead, Laura.
Español, por favor.
Sí.
Ingrid. Gracias por esta presentación. Gracias.
Laura, ¿me hace un favor? ¿Me puede escuchar? Si me hace un favor, vamos a hacer, si puede poco a poquito dar sus comentarios para que así yo pueda traducirlos al inglés a la gente que lo está escuchando.
Claro.
Ok. Proceda, gracias.
Aprecio mucho la presentación de hoy.
I really appreciate today's session.
Trabajo para una agencia también como un part-time, como facilitador de grupos de violencia doméstica para extender más el programa y hacerlo más público para que la gente tenga más acceso.
I'd like to show my support to the Department of Public Health and to the Office of Violence Prevention to lift up the program so that individuals who need it and the public can have access to the program and know that the program exists.
Y por último me gustaría agregar para las personas que están aquí buscando grupos de apoyo como una atención inmediata, el Departamento de Salud Mental tiene grupos comunitarios por teléfono todos los días de la semana con diferentes horarios.
Lastly, I'd like to extend an invite to anyone here who's attended and is in need of a support group. The Department of Mental Health has several support groups that are available and meet on a daily basis, or actually several groups that meet daily. And they are available through the Department of Mental Health and they meet through telephone services.
Son gratuitos y pueden contactar al doctor Julio Celada del Departamento de Salud Mental. Creo que les puede dar el seguimiento.
The services and the groups are free, and you can contact Dr. Julio Salada at the Department of Mental Health. Again, his name is Dr. Julio Salada at the Department of Mental Health, and he could give you instructions on how to join one of these support groups.
Muchas gracias y también si tienen mi correo electrónico, si necesitan información sobre los grupos, estoy disponible.
Thank you so much. You have my email, so if you need any information regarding the support groups, I'm more than available to help. Muchas gracias por tus comentarios y muchas gracias por la ayuda que informó.
Gracias a usted.
Thank you. And our next speaker will be Susie Evans. Susie, you are unmuted. Please go ahead.
Yes, with everything that's gone on all over the world, our little town of Alberti has very limited resources, and I'm hoping that what you do is more available to the people that live here, because I've never heard of this before.
Thank you. I mean, that's part of what we need to hear and that's part of what we want to know is how do we really ensure that we communicate about the services. Obviously, there was a pilot program. The program is going through a transition, but part of what we really want to hear, and we thank you for your comment, is how do we ensure that people do know about the services that are available. So we will be working on that, but thank you for your comment.
Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. And next we will hear from Pauletta Dunn Sanders. You are unmuted. Please go ahead, Pauletta.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for this meeting and allowing me the time to comment. So, to Ms. Christina and Ms. Jessica, I give God prayers for you guys and your family, and hope that you guys receive the help that you truly need. Also, I did answer all the questions here prior to this meeting, so all the questions on the slide are kind of mixed up. But I do want to answer, which what I have is question 1, but you guys see it. The question is, what kinds of resources are needed to help the community heal after a fatal use of force incident? And my feeling about that is a thriving forward community who's experienced fatal use of force is in the need of proper resources, which should have been set in place previously as a tool to eliminate or decreasing such harmful activities. Communities have to embrace all cultures based on needs of all cultures, which provides inclusiveness and respect for the community and residents, forest owners. basically the community leaders, like the mayors, the council members, the supervisors of that community, uh, in order to heal and trust, be able to have more trust being placed in the community. All those things need to align together. And I will be on this meeting until the end to answer the rest of the questions. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Pauletta. And next we will move to Stacy Nelson. Stacy, you are unmuted. Please go ahead.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't even know that I was set to speak, but having been part of the Office of Inspector General when this program was being built, I do have ideas about how to offer more support to the community, not only on the back end of a tragedy, but also on the front end as far as education. So I'd love to meet with the COC or the Office of Violence Prevention anytime to speak on those further, because they are a little more detailed than I would have time to express in this meeting.
Thank you. And next we will hear from Valerie Vargas. Valerie, you're unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me?
We do.
Yeah, I'm Valerie Vargas. I'm a surviving family member of Anthony Vargas, who was killed by LASD in 2018. From my understanding, I remember when the Family Assistance Program had barely came out. It was like in 2019, and we were just shy a few months before it had got implemented. One of my questions was, is there like some statute of limitation where families have to meet in order to obtain these services from the county? Because I've had a few families asking me about the Family Assistance Program, and I have yet to meet one that has actually received any sort of assistance from the Family Assistance Program. With that being said, if there's any dates that are available or some statute of limitations, if you could let me know so I could pass it forward for other people that I know who really do need it to receive the services. And also, like, if I wanted to know what and where the funds have been distributed from 2019 to 2021, if this program's been implemented for the past 3 years. And just, within this past year, we've been hearing a lot about it. I have reached out to victim services, and I have reached out to families of violence that the county would have. And every time we would reach out for some kind of assistance, rather it be financial, rather it be for any kind of just questions of legalities for filing or just navigating, the county, we have been told that we don't fall within those lines because we are perpetrators for law enforcement. So I really do hope that the Family Assistance Program delivers on the aspects of making it a permanent funding for families, because I feel like the county has no problem funding LASD. So if there's any way also that my family could obtain some kind of assistance, because within the past 3 years, it didn't just stop with them murdering my nephew. LASD has done its best to further harass our family, and with that came with the purchases of cameras and lost wages, with them following us and then making sure that we lose our jobs. And I want to know if there's a little bit more information about what the Family Assistance Program will be offering impacted family members for police violence. And that would be all, Jennifer. Thank you.
So I don't know. Oh, Patty, do you?
Yeah, I don't
Go
know
ahead.
what protocol we're supposed to comment or just listen, but a really good point, several good points were just brought up, and one of the ones I think we never intended any kind of statute of limitations, so in the original construction. So I'm hoping, Andrea, that idea will continue into the future. Many we've been working on getting rid of statutes of limitations on a lot of things, so I would hope that we wouldn't include one for this program. That's just my comment.
Thank you. I think that is what we want to hear is that's the whole purpose of tonight's meeting is to really hear what went well in the past, what didn't go so well, where could we make improvements. So thank you very much for your comments, so that we will register that. I know we're going to make this plug at the end, but I'm also going to say it here, is that there will be a survey link that we'll provide at the end of the meeting, so that if you don't get a chance to speak now, or you have more that you want to say than you have the time for, there's going to be another mechanism by which you can provide feedback and comment to us. And also at the end, I will put my contact information in the chat, and I know COC will also link you to their office, so that there's opportunity for follow-up. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And as a reminder, if you would like to make a comment, please raise your hand in the participant window. If you're not sure if you're in queue to make a comment, please send a chat to the host. And our next speaker will be Leticia Vasquez. You're unmuted. Please go ahead, Leticia.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'd like to first and foremost thank the committee for holding this session and providing this forum to the many families that have been impacted by police violence and other type of brutality. I know that there are several of us here listening, and this is obviously a step forward in the right direction to help many of us heal in some kind of way, which we know that will never be a full healing, but at least we can move in the right direction. So thank you very much for that. And I'd like to say that one of the things that I would like to see happen, and hopefully through this committee and other sessions, that the 5150 PET team be open a lot longer than it currently is. I know that in our situation, the day that they murdered my son, and we tried when we called the second time, and we were told that it was closed. So it was 10 o'clock and they were closed at 10:30 thereabout. So being that there is so many mental crisis situations out there and so many people with these issues, it is really baffling to me that a program like that or any other would be closed at such an early time, because this is a city, a state that never sleeps. And so to have that closed so early, that's what took us to have to call LASD Pico Rivera, which then we know what the outcome of that was. And so seeing my grandchildren, Christina and my husband and everyone else, my son, affected by it, sometimes it's really hard to even communicate with them or within ourselves, because it's like speaking of it is very painful. In providing help, what's helpful is, like Christina said, reaching out to the families as soon as you guys hear that there is a fatal shooting. How can you guys assist? Well, we live in the unincorporated part of LA County. I honestly feel like I am in the middle of nowhere. That I don't belong to a city, that I don't belong to anyone where I feel that I can reach out and say, hey, can you help? Or no one has reached out to us other than the two that Christina mentioned, and that was way later, the second one that assisted with this program. The first one did reach out shortly after, and so that would help a lot. regarding trust, how can we trust? We called the mental health department to help us. We called for assistance, and we feel like they failed us completely 100%. And now here we are all grieving and forever tormented by the trauma of witnessing the murder of our loved one. So there is no trust, and yet we want the help. At least I'll speak for me. But I don't even know where to go. I don't even know who to call. And even if there are people that have reached out or said you need help, I'm afraid to get help. So I do appreciate what you guys are doing. I really do. But it's kind of hard to trust. It's kind of hard to trust, but I thank you guys for allowing this and putting this form, and hopefully we will gain a lot of knowledge and a lot of programs out there for all of us that need it. Thank you.
Thank you, Leticia. And next we will hear from Kevin Orange. Kevin, you're unmuted. Please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. I'm sorry for Kevin out so late, but this topic is very personal to me because I am also a victim of community violence. I was shot 8 times before, lost my twin brother at a county light vigil. So there's a number of stories that I could share just working in the West Mount without having the resources. And get to the point to where we can start healing each other. This community has been plagued with violence and just mistrust with community members, law enforcement, as well as services that's supposed to be provided to us. And so I think we got to get to a place to where we can start trusting one another in order for us to start healing one another. If we come in with the attitude of us against them, we're never going to go anywhere. And so with this, I think we coming up with ideas and to bring the services to have more of a community-based say-so in it, because most things that come over here are created from people outside this community. So when you involve the community to start being a part of the process of what it is that they need and how they want it, I think they can get along much further on with providing services, because there's no reason why services should be closed to any family, because violence don't stop around this 24/7, like, they just sharing. And so I think when we have like programs with violent crimes that's here, I think community-based organization would be a better source for them to go and get the resources, because they connected to the community. They more compassionate. They don't live and survive through some of these stories that people share on these phone calls. So these are things I think will benefit our community and put us in a better place than what we've been suffering from the last 40, 50 years. Because I've been a resident of this community for the last 50 years. So I'm very versed in everything, and I'm not the one that's trying to be against law enforcement. How do we bring law enforcement to be a part of this community? So we won't have to look at them with distrust and them looking at us as distrust. It's like, how do we start building this relationship? So we got to get to the healing, and that's where we got to bring more of these community-based organizations that's been around these communities for the last 15, 20 years, providing services for free. And so how we leverage that, and I think public health is going in the right direction, where they being more of a listener and walking alongside with community members instead of walking in front of and dictating with them. So I just like the process. I just hope they don't lose a vision. And losing a vision is not letting the community be involved when you're making these decisions and changes in our communities that they've plaguing us for the last 40, 50 years that I done seen. So we can get our schools, our communities back to a stable place to where people feel safe to go to school, our faculties and everyone else. So I haven't had too much time to share, but that's what I want to just bring to the table and share with everybody. So grateful for being here this evening. Thank you. Yeah, my name is Kevin Orange, and also known as Twin. I'm the co-founder for Advocates for Peace and Unity that works in South LA and the West Mount community. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. And next we will hear from Julie Martinez. Julie, you're unmuted. Please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to explain that my family is an impacted family from a sheriff violence. My grandson was murdered by the East LA Sheriff's Department. And what I wanted to share with you is that just like in any trauma such as murder or death of a loved one when it's unexpected, the trauma the family feels is unbelievably harsh. And what I saw my family go through, it was very, very, very difficult to watch, because when a loved one is hurt or killed, by an accident, it's different from when they're killed, murdered, and the violence is inflicted by someone in power. And the power of the sheriff or police is incredibly powerful. And you instantly know at the time of the tragedy that you have literally no recourse, because, as we know, California had an unprecedented amount of immunity and law enforcement. Of course, that law has now changed, and there's a decertification, but this happened in a couple of years ago, so you immediately understand that there will be no justice, and that type of trauma is so difficult. And I could see my daughter-in-law, my granddaughter, and unfortunately for my granddaughter, I could see the intense rage that she felt. And I was extremely worried because the sheriff were harassing the family, going to the site, going to their home, driving by, and it was just so incredibly a dangerous situation, because as a teenager, the rage that one feels is, and there was really no services out there. They tried so hard to get counseling, and it just was not available. And I do not ever want another family to have to experience that type of rage. And I can see how this program has great potential, and it's not really a question, but it's a request that you really focus on mental health issues. If you can expand upon that program, that would be great. I hear other callers coming in and talking about the lack of help, the lack of counseling. My family never really received adequate counseling at that time. There was some offered to her, but the paperwork was taking so long that they never really got the type of help that they needed. So I'm extremely grateful for the COC and County Board of Supervisors for creating this family assistance program. It was needed for a long time, and I just wanted to highlight the immense pain and suffering and trauma that families experience under this different type of killing, because, like I said, they are killed by an entity that has a tremendous amount of power, and you just know that justice will never be served, that they will be protected by the district attorney, by the sheriff department. So I would just like to leave that with you, that if you could examine the type of mental health and therapy that's provided, and possibly consider increasing it. Thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Julie. And next we will hear from Jessica Carter. Jessica, you're unmuted. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Hello, Jessica. Please go ahead.
Oh, okay. I actually didn't know I was going to speak, but I've been listening in, and I have had a husband that was killed by the police, and I experienced all of the harassment that I hear other families say, and again, that would be because they are in power. I also had my brother who was murdered, and I think in order to build the trust, one thing is that no matter what the circumstances is, the family members, we didn't want that to happen. And whatever happened, we're not like co-conspirators. And I think that the way the system is set up now, that family is automatically assumed to be in a position of defiance against the police and the county, and then the enormous amount of paperwork that you have to do to be entitled to resources should be shortened. And I just think it's going to be good if you have community-based help, and you also have people that have lived experience. These mothers and daughters and sisters and brothers, they have experience where they know the language that will be most effective when these type of tragedies happen in our community. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak. And I just think what you're doing here is great. And this is the conversation that starts the bridge to building the trust.
Thank you, Jessica. And next we will hear from Tiffany Garcia. Tiffany, you're unmuted. Please go ahead.
Hello. First of all, thank you for creating this space. I didn't plan on coming on to this webinar, but I was invited. And I just want to reiterate what Jessica just shared about having people work in the community that have the lived experience. It's very important. It's knowing where these families are coming from, meeting them where they're at, having that empathy for them and what they're going through. And I speak from experience. And I work in the line, so I know, and I'm very passionate about what I do and linking my families and my clients to the resources that are needed. So I think it's very important to have people working for your program that are passionate about this. They're not just another referral. They're not just another client. Someone that has the passion and the empathy for these families that are going through this traumatic event. It has turned their world upside down and will never be the same again.
East LA Sheriff deputies in 2018, we quickly learned that there was resources for those who have lost loved ones to other types of violence, but there was nowhere to go for those who have their loved ones murdered by law enforcement. You know, we learned that we didn't qualify for certain types of funding or services because our perpetrators wear a badge. You know, because the ones who inflict the trauma on us, they wear a badge. You know, we reached out in 2019 to look for resources, and we received a response stating that we didn't qualify for the services. You know, the trauma immediately started when we were waiting behind the yellow tape. You know, from the moment we arrived, like upon the shooting, we were met with hostility and aggression from the deputies. And the days following, I can even attest to 3 years later, we've had nobody reach out to us from the county offering services for help with Anthony's funeral arrangements. Nobody from the county offering mental health services for not just the adults suffering from PTSD within my family, but also the children. We had no help from the county or from victims of crime. They failed us immensely. You know, while my family was left grieving my nephew's murder, we were also left to search for our own community-based mental health services. All while there was trauma, and I'm going to say this, there was trauma resources quickly given to the East LA Sheriff deputies. You know, while the county failed us, community-based service providers were there to help us. Community-based organizations reach out and continue to reach out to provide services to my family. You know, listening to Wendy speak, it reminds me of the things that have been taken away from me following Anthony's murder. You know, like self-care for me has been intertwined with constantly looking at cameras we had to set up to surveillance our home as protection from the deputies. You know, as far as what can be done to bridge the connection between the community and the county, it's extremely difficult, you know, to have trust in the system that has a hand in our loved ones' murder. You know, I appreciate the Family Assistance Program and everything that it, you know, has put in place to help the families. I would also like to, you know, raise a really important point is what happens to the families who don't have legal status. There are a lot of families who don't have legal status and have their loved ones taken by law enforcement. So I'm hoping that the Family Assistance Program also offers them, you know, some type of services, or is also, you know, offering them mental health services as well. You know, it's pretty straightforward. You know, we need resources to go to community-based organizations like Dignity Empower Now. You know, that's an organization that's embedded in impacted communities. We personally have established relationships and trust with community members and community leaders who are already doing the work of providing life-giving resources.
They give us mental health services with no expense. I would also, like to give a recommendation that the family assistance program and also the civilian oversight, maybe you guys should meet with families, and even check the sheriff coalition to get more of like an in-depth input, and hear firsthand from impacted families what we've gone through and the types of services that we need, and also the services we were denied, to see if there's a way to fix those flaws so it doesn't happen to families to come, because we know that this is going to be reoccurring, and I mean, I don't know what else to say, we appreciate the family assistance program, and we just hope that it's put in place to help, families in the way that it was unable to help mine, because when you're grieving, you shouldn't be asking for donations or setting up a GoFundMe or having a car wash, to raise funeral funds to pay for your loved one's service. I'll never forget, the family of Rio Chavez. He was murdered by CHP, and seeing his mom and seeing his grandma and his grandpa sitting outside of a car wash, asking for funds while they were grieving, all while the family assistance program is put in place. Like, it sucks, and I just hope that the family assistance program gets up and running and starts doing its job to help these families. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. And next we will hear from Helen Jones. Helen, you're unmuted. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. My name is Helen Jones. I'm a community organizer with Dignity and Power Now. I'm also the mother of John Horton, who was murdered March 30th, 2009 by the 30,000 Boys Deputy Sheriff Gang. I would like to speak to what I feel the families need, the services of what I didn't get over the 12 years, the first 7.5 years that I was fighting, trying to get some accountability from the sheriff department, and just even trying to get some of these deputies brought to justice, and not one of these deputies has been held accountable for my son's death, even after 12 years. And during that experience, all the way from 2009, all the way up until 2006, 17, I was able to get no help, no mental services, no family assistance, because of course we know it wasn't around. And I'm really appreciative what you guys are doing with the family assistance program, because the families really need it, because this service wasn't here for 7.5 years. I went without no mental service. I mean, and it was really, when I say it was the most hardest thing that I ever had to experience, I go through in my life, is to go through the trauma that I was left behind, knowing my son was beat to death in solitary confinement with all his organs busted, and knowing that all the supervisors and all the people that run the officials that were running our city, the county of Los Angeles, also the sheriff department, knowing that my son has been murdered, knowing the proof is there. But I went through this trauma just like the rest of these families have been going. And it took 7.5 years for me to meet DPN and organizations like Black Lives Matter. The DPN is one of the organizations that gave me help. So that's what we feel, a lot of us families really feel. We need resources, to go to the community-based organizations like DPN, Black Lives Matter, and others that are embedded and impacted in communities, already have established relationships and trust with the community members, and that are doing the work. And plus they are providing life-giving resources to us. Family assistance program and the COC to meet with the families like, all of our families, and check the sheriff to get more in-depth input on, we are the survivors that are left over. And most of the families, even to this day, still have to beg for service. And even if when they do go try to get the service, they got to go through so much red tape, and not only they have to go through this red tape, but they have to go through this being in pain, the trauma, still have to take care of the kids, still have to pay the rent, still have to bury their children, and we just need to cut this red tape for the family members and start reaching out to the organizations that already, supporting the families, organizations, the community-based organizations like DPN that's already helping the families already trust these organizations. These are organizations that need support to get back to the family members. So I just want to say that we need to stop letting our family members go through so much trauma by the head of the sheriff department. So I really appreciate, the meeting, the listening meeting I had today for us. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Helen. And next we'll hear from Hilda Pedroza. You're unmuted. Please go ahead, Hilda.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone, or evening, sorry. I am the sister of David Ordaz Jr., who was murdered by the East LA Sheriff's Department this past March. And what I would suggest is I wish there was some sort of liaison or community member there that day to give me the information that the investigators were giving me. We need someone who is community-based or a community member, someone that we could trust, because yes, when it's someone who works for the county, we automatically think it's the sheriff. They're going to tell the sheriff or they're going to go report to them. And I know that in the beginning we are completely traumatized and we don't even know what's going on. So in our case, I know I didn't want to hear about anything in the beginning, but somebody was calling me from the department, from the program, and they didn't stop. They continued calling and calling again until I actually was able to speak to them and have a conversation with them. Unfortunately, they weren't able to help me because I have insurance and I wasn't able to get help from them. So then from there, what I did was, thankfully, Dignity Empowered Now and Alma Health Services both were the services where I was able to get any mental health. Yes, they did offer me someone after I actually spoke to Miss Williams. She intervened and she was able to help me to speak to someone else from the program, and they were able to help me again. The only services that I'm getting from them still now is OT, occupational therapy, because it's very hard for me to be at work. It's very traumatizing. My entire life has completely changed. And the other thing that I think that is where they went down was they did get me a therapist. The first time that I missed my first therapy, till now, they have never contacted me. They have never reached out to me to see what's going on. And like I said, thankfully now I have an actual therapist, but they never tried. And I think that that's the first thing where they messed up. They should have continued calling like they did in the beginning from the actual program. Also, I think we need someone like Miss Williams who contacts us. I feel so comfortable talking to her. I see how she actually helped us find more information, giving us resources, and that's what we really need. We need someone who's willing to do it, not just ask, what do you need? But come to us and say, look, this is something you could do. This is another place that you could find resources, or another place that you might want in the future, not even now, to seek help from. And, and I wish we could communicate with the families through call, text, and email, and just continue offering help, not just asking for help. And I think that is all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Hilda. And next we'll hear from Scott Rushing. Scott, you're unmuted. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we do.
First of all, I'd like to say to all the speakers, you can
sense their pain and agony, and I share it. My son was killed in an officer-involved shooting in 2017. He was 34 years old, and he was shot 3 times in the chest, the throat, and the back of the head, bitten by a dog after the shots, and then tased. So I can promise you these people are feeling more than just the loss of their loved ones. It's the tainted killing of a loved one by law enforcement. You don't get the same, it really impacts a family. And while you're suffering from the loss of your loved one and trying to pick up the pieces emotionally, financially, as these people have done, there's no place for the families to go for legal resources. This is something I've been advocating for in a different area. My son was not killed in LA County, and I'm a resident of Ventura County. But there's no resources, legal resources. And the civilian oversight commissions, yours and others, and I've volunteered to help through organizations like NACOL, the National Association of the Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement, to develop a national and a regional and a local legal referral network, so that families who are already in shock from losing a loved one have an attorney that they can turn to, who's skilled, knowledgeable, level-headed, and ready to work for a family, especially poor families or Spanish-speaking families or families that don't have papers that are here. They all deserve legal support, and it's not being given. Law enforcement gets tons of taxpayer-paid support, but the victims and the victims' families get vilified, they get emotional shock, and they have no place to turn. And there's no organization that's putting people together, the victims' families, with lawyers that are ready to help serve and try to get justice for these families. As these people have said, the officers, most of them that killed the loved ones, did not lose their jobs. Many of them got promoted, and they're still on the street. So I'll leave it at that. Some kind of legal referral service needs to be available to these families. Someone to help think for them when they're in such emotional turmoil. And that's all.
Thank you, Scott. And we will hear from our last speaker. That will be Wendy Cabill. Wendy, you are trying to unmute you, Wendy, but I'm having a little difficulty with that. Just try one more thing. Sorry, everyone. It looks like I'm only having that issue with Wendy. We do have one additional person who raised their hand, Tiffany Blacknell. You're unmuted. Please go ahead, Tiffany.
Hi, thank you. My name is Tiffany Blacknell, and I am one of DA George Gascon's special advisors, and also the new interim director of the Bureau of Victim Services. I've been in this role for about a month, and I can't tell you how heartbreaking the comments I've heard tonight have been. And I would just like to extend my sympathies to all of the survivors of police violence on behalf of DA Gascon, and just know that placing me in this role as interim director of the Bureau of Victim Services, one of my most prominent concerns are how to support the survivors of police violence. I echo the sentiments of everyone on this call that have indicated how I've seen families vilified, survivors vilified, and no justice being sought in my years, previously as a public defender, but now in this role. And we are committed to finding both resources as well as funding to support the survivors of police violence. It is currently enmeshed in a system that does not acknowledge the victimization that happens at the hands of police. and we are trying to work around those rules, those state rules. DA Gascon supported a bill this year to allow funding for victims of police violence, but that bill sadly did not pass. But we are still committed to the effort and looking for creative ways to support survivors better. I have been heartbroken on officer-involved shooting briefings where I've heard about family members of people killed by police with blood-splattered clothes being interviewed by police, not being offered compassion and empathy, but rather interviewed as if they didn't just lose someone very dear to them. So this has been very impactful to our work, and I will be sure to report back to DA Gascon what I've heard tonight, which I'm sure he already knows, but just to reaffirm our efforts to support you in any way that we can. And of course, I will be a resource to you if anyone wants to reach out and provide support and provide input to the work that we're starting in the Bureau of Victim Services. I will be very, very interested in having those conversations. And I can give my email. I believe Andrea has my email, but just so you know that I'm here and I'm listening and I want to do more to try to figure out ways around the laws, the state laws that control victim services. And just thank you for sharing. Thank you for your transparency and your vulnerability. It's not falling on deaf ears. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. And Andrea, we do have 2 additional speakers. Do you want to give them just 30 seconds or so to make a comment, or do we need to cut it off now?
I would say I would like to give them a little short time to make their comments. It would be, we can make the time and I'll go. I think we should hear them.
Okay, so Giovanni Elliston, you're unmuted. Please go ahead, Giovanni.
Hi, my name is Giovanni Elliston, and I first, before speaking, want to just acknowledge how so many things that I've heard have just taken me to the place where I have been trying to get myself and my sister and my family out of. Just listening to especially Anthony Bardavis's family member who spoke. I'm sorry I didn't take great notes. I kind of came in on the way in, but everything that she said was so emotional and hit me. Just the fact that my brother, he was like my son. He was murdered. His name was Jamal Simpson. He was murdered August the 1st of 2019 by Gregory Van Ozen, deputy of the Linwood Sheriff's Department. And it's been 18 months. There was a reporter by the name of Cerise Castell who reported on my brother and brought the first light to his case. And since then, we have been making strides in the right direction to, at the very least, get some light shed on my brother's murder. That's all we can ask for 18 months later. At this point, the family will never be at peace. We will never feel that justice was served after we were overlooked for almost 2 years. Nothing has been updated. We didn't even know his name unless it was for Sharif. So I just want to say that. I know I don't have a lot of time to speak. I'm happy that I was able to speak. And I want to send my deepest condolences to every single family member who has spoken tonight and this evening. And I want to send my prayers to you all. And we do share a certain special pain that nothing ever will change the lives that were lost to LAPD, LASD, gang violence. Yeah, they are gangs. That's what they are. And that they wanted to depict our family members as gangs or having guns or selling drugs or whatever they want to depict them as. We can't depict them, clearly. 7 years. I heard someone say 7 years. I heard someone say 12 years. I heard someone say 4 years, 5 years. We are obviously, at the very, very bottom of the barrel. We're just trying to have our family members' voices be heard, and that's all I really want. That's all I came here tonight to do. And again, I just send my deepest condolences to everybody.
Thank you, Giovanni. Thank you. And our last speaker will be Wendy Cavill. Please go ahead.
Thank you once again. And I must say that my heart is very heavy. And the burden has gotten deeper as I continue to move forward in my leadership position. As the co-chair of the Black and African Heritage and Underserved Cultural Community Subcommittee within the Department of Mental Health, my heart goes out to all of you and all the supporters. The struggle is real, and we must continue to stay united in the struggle. And I'm going to need your support to come to the table that is for you in the DMH presence. I'm inviting you. There are 7 underserved cultural community groups. I put a link in, the host has the link. Please feel free to share. And I'm making myself available as well. And together our voices, we will be heard. I can't be heard alone. I need you as well. And I need your presence at the table. I've been fighting my own struggle behind the scene. Like I said earlier, for those who wasn't here from the beginning, I do not have experience in this particular matter in the family assistance program, but I know what it is to not be heard. I know what it is to be overlooked. I know what it is not to be taken seriously. I know what it is to feel muted, not to have my pain validated or affirmed. I've been a client of the Department of Mental Health for 12 years now. And what I'm sharing with you is nothing that I haven't shared already with them. So I want you to know that you're in good company. But I can't do it alone in my leadership position. And that's where I need you all to support me as I continue trying my best to advocate for the needs of our underserved community. I have experienced homelessness. And in my 13 years of homelessness, dealing with the department, not one clinician asked me about my journey. I find that very strange. But that's okay, because God has brought me to this point thus far. He will continue moving me forward for a reason, because I believe He has given me this assignment to be that voice for the voiceless. So I say, we must keep pushing on. And for those of you, anyone is invited to come to any and all the cultural groups, but I am looking out for the Blacks group. Please reach out to me. Please reach out. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. And Andrea, that does conclude all of the public comments.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you who spoke. And if you didn't get an opportunity to speak and you still want to provide feedback, I know my contact information is in the chat. You will have an opportunity to a survey link that we share. Right now, I'd like to turn it over to Wendy to just, after all that heaviness, as was mentioned, and all of what was shared, to just bring us back and ground us before we close out this meeting. Wendy, I'll turn it over to you.
Everyone who was vulnerable and shared tonight. I think that part of the healing process is building community, and I think this is one of the ways that we're hoping that community is built, and creating programs like the Family Assistance Program or even the Trauma Recovery Centers. That's what we do. We build community. It's unfortunate that we meet in those circumstances, but it's great to be a part of something bigger and make change in however we can. So I'd like to invite all of you to just get comfortable wherever you are, and I want you to just in the spirit of finding some grounding and regulating ourselves. I want you to just think about a time in your life where you felt calm or you felt peace. Think about, maybe a specific memory that brought feelings of calmness. Or even a time in the past where you may have felt confident in your abilities. And feel free to close your eyes if you want, or keep them open. whatever feels safe and comfortable. So just notice the memory, and as we mentioned before, I want you to intensify that memory. And think about what were the colors you were wearing in that memory, or if someone was